I'd like to get the study session started, and let me get my agenda out and I can do it a little bit better. So first, we are going to have the State Board with Lisa Medler.
Hello, hello. Okay, so I think the way I understood it is that you guys were asking for a progress monitoring update from the state, and then you want me to go, and then we want to start on Central. Is that how you want me to structure it?
Sure.
Okay, so I have some handouts that I can share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this, I don't know if you guys remember, but at the last work session last month, I did a verbal one. So this is really just a recapture, but I wrote it down for you this time, of what I had reported out last time, okay? So I know you guys are tight on time, you've got a long evening ahead of you, so I'll try and go as quickly as possible. So essentially, on that second portion, I just laid out the main components of the order from November, and assigned it a status on each of those main components. So acknowledging that that the local board, especially through the district, has done a good job of connecting with CDE at each step of the process, but still calling that in progress since we don't actually have an approved selection yet. That the scope of work aligns with the state board order. Just feel like we're, completed. You guys did a good job with that. Selects an entity that uses research-based strategies. Just saying that that's in progress since, again, we don't have a final selection. That the process reflects engagement of community stakeholders. So just acknowledging that you have met, you've designed a process that meets that expectation. It's in progress, obviously, since the whole process is still in motion. And then the other two are related to the selection of the EMO, so both around the scope of work, as well as the work around compliance, including the Office of Civil Rights. Again, having that wrapped up in the EMO selection process. Okay, and then going to the next page, which would be slide 3. Just listed out the request from the state board that was last month, that the Adams 14 and their selected EMO Mapleton Public Schools work to strengthen the application for identifying additional partners, and just acknowledging that that's in progress. Also acknowledging that there was a meeting between Adams 14 leadership and Mapleton and CDE last night. So just acknowledging that that's in progress. If going down to the next slide, so 4, just noting a few other things that I want to make sure you guys are hearing from me as well, that I didn't necessarily get to talk about last month, which is just acknowledging that you guys are very focused, and I know this is very time-consuming and taking up a lot of your energy, both for you as well as for the district and school staff. So just want to acknowledge that and just know that it's observed. That there is work being done for Central Elementary in May with the state board, and that's, as evidenced by our work tonight. That we, just also to let you know, that I've been meeting and being able to observe some of the schools. So I've been in Adams City High School, been in Central Elementary. I've also been in Rose Hill. They're year 3 on the clock. So just letting you know that I'm, still making connections, doing observations, so I at least have a sense of what's going on in some of the schools. Also want to acknowledge that the district and the schools are continuing to do their work, right? Kids are continuing to be educated, and we observe that as well. And I want to really acknowledge the staff in the district and the schools. This is hard work. There's a lot in limbo, and I just see people putting their head down and really trying to do good work despite that. And then I also want to call out that technical assistance from outside partners is continuing. For example, BT Schools Cubed in your schools, also through CDE. And I don't know how much you always hear about that, but there's several offices that are spending quite a bit of time in the district. I'm in contact with all of them, so we do a lot of coordination, but just also want to acknowledge that there's still a lot of work happening in the district beyond me personally, okay? And then the rest of the slides are just reference. I'm assuming you guys have read them ad nauseum. So that kind of wraps up that portion. Do you guys have any questions on that portion of the report?
Questions?
Ms. Medler, the 3 schools that you mentioned, those 3 are all past the 5-year window on the clock, is that correct?
So Adams City High School is year 8, same as the district. Central is year 6 as of July 1, so year 5. Well, yeah, year 6, essentially this year. So that's why that hearing was scheduled for May. And then Rose Hill is just the next furthest. They're year 3. So there is plenty of time to intervene before we ever get to the end of the clock with them. But just trying to, I just want to make connections and see what's going on in the schools before we ever get to the end. So that's why I was trying to prioritize them too. Does that help?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Rolla, do you have any?
Great. What makes sense otherwise on the moving it to central? Do you want me to start? Do you want to start? Do you guys? Okay. Well, I feel kind of weird starting. Okay. Okay, so I have more handouts. You guys are so lucky. Okay, so I'll keep this really brief too, and obviously can come up and answer more questions as the conversation begins.
So, sorry, Ms. Medler, before we move on, sorry, I didn't realize the remaining slides were just reference points. The meeting that occurred between Mapleton CDE and Adams 14 yesterday evening, were you involved in that meeting? And I'm wondering if you could give an update on what CDE observed in that meeting.
Sure. I was there. I can say that there was both board and executive and legal representation from both Adams 14 and from Mapleton Public Schools, as well as from the Department of Education. The conversation really focused, I think, just on getting the conversation started on where are we. The 2 main issues were around whether Mapleton Public Schools would be willing to add a partner at this time versus later, after diagnostics. And there was also discussion around authority and how much authority was actually being requested. I would say, I'm looking at Board President Quintana as well. She was there, if you also want to add. I would say that my understanding of where things ended was that Mapleton felt that their application stood without changes, that's what their board had approved. And so they were not feeling able at this point in time to name a partner and still felt strongly that they needed to work with the district and do diagnostics before they could ever really name a partner. On the authority, it sounds like after some back and forth, Mapleton felt that that they did need additional authority beyond the state board's order. And again, President Quintana can speak to this, but I think just like at the state board meeting, she reiterated that they were only willing to go as far as what was in the order. It was very collegial, very professional. I felt like a lot of conversation was in there about being neighbors and continuing to be good neighbors. And that, things were very collegial, would be the way I'd classify it. Does that help? I mean, I think the other thing that was also confirmed is that the state board has asked to, or state board leadership has asked to amend their agenda this week on Thursday to get a status report from the Department of Education on Thursday around noon. So that's just CDE. I mean, you guys are obviously welcome. It's a public meeting, but I don't think you guys are being asked to come report or anything. It's just from CDE.
And if I can ask just a quick clarifying question on that. The agenda item on Thursday, could the state board take action if they chose to?
Take action as in, you mean beyond the request? I guess, can you get a little more specific?
Yeah, beyond the motion and the order that they've already submitted regarding directing Adams 14 to work with Mapleton. This is where I would need to go back and check, and I am happy to follow up and then get you guys a more solid answer. So I want to give you an answer, but I think I'd feel more comfortable if I could just double check it. And then would an email to you guys within the next 24 hours be okay? That'd be great.
Was it okay? Yeah.
Who was all present?
I'm sorry.
Who was all present at that meeting?
Who was present?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was there. Deputy Commissioner Alyssa Pearson was there. Julie Tolson from the Attorney General's office. Danny Reiner, for Attorney General's office as well. Those were the CDE representatives. From Adams 14, President Quintana. Acting Superintendent, is that your title? Filling in, Darcy Moore. And then John Farrow was also there. And then from Mapleton was Superintendent Charlotte Chancho. And I'm not going to remember everybody's name. I have to apologize. Board President Cindy Croissant. And then what's the other board representative?
Mike.
Tom Moe.
Sorry.
Tom Moe.
Yeah.
Tom. And then their legal representation,
Big
Dick
bumps.
Bumps. Yeah. Does that sound right?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so moving over to Central Elementary, I'm going to give a very broad overview. This is very, drafty. I do have I have a request of you guys and potentially a decision from you that I will get to in a sec on this first slide. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. But just to lay out the facts, we've got Central Elementary, which is year 5, currently on the clock. Come July 1, they will be year 6, so this is why the hearing was scheduled in May. They are currently on the school performance framework at 40% of points, which is a slight increase each year, honestly. To get off of the clock, they need to be at 42%. Okay. I have copies of their frameworks as well. Would that be helpful to share with them? Yeah, so I have those copies if you guys want them. The state review panel visited them a year ago, actually in May 2018. They recommended external management. I also have copies of the executive summary. If, I don't know, you guys should have received that. If you haven't, I would really encourage you to read it. There's some very good information. I'm assuming that the district in their presentation will also cover it, because I know that's been guiding some of their work. But I have copies of that. It's just 2 pages. So good information in there. There is a hearing scheduled for May. And this is the part where I need you guys to weigh in. And that is, I think, in light of where the district is in its own, the order from the state board, just like with Adams City High School, the state board is open to essentially aligning the same order to cover Central Elementary, so that the hearing could kind of be ramped down a little bit and treat it more as a presentation. There's still, the state board needs to be familiar with what's going on. They want to know the story, but treat it more as, yep, we're going to do the same thing as in Adams City High School. It'll fall under the district's order with the external management organization, but that, still acknowledging that the school is at the end of the clock. So treating that more as a presentation and less as a formal hearing. So if I could walk out of here kind of even with your feelings on that, that would be great. The state board is supportive. We, CDE, are supportive. With some tentative talks, I think it makes sense to staff, but definitely wanting to make sure that you guys have a say in this and that that's feeling okay to you as well. Okay? So something to think about. I know you guys have been having data walks over the course of the year. On the next slide, I did at least include some achievement data and growth data so that you at least have that. The bars on there, that yellow bar, is what it takes to get to the approaching level. So they are there, obviously we want to get that higher, especially in growth. So when you look at achievement, definitely not where we want them to be, but in terms of growth, I think there's a lot of room there. And I would say, and this is where I think they'll be offering some interim data from this year that looks somewhat promising. So there's some good things happening there, but just wanted to at least lay this out in front of you from the data that we do have. Okay. So highlights on the school. I'm going to the next slide.
Questions for,
Yeah.
Ms. Medler, just real quick, on the data that you've provided, I'm curious, can any of that data be attributed to, or does it correspond in any way to some of the district's other initiatives, like beyond textbooks, or is it too early to tell on that piece?
This is, I think, going to be a good question to hold on to for the district and school staff. My understanding is it's kind of early, but I think they're going to go into much more detail. So can you hold on to that question? Okay.
Going back to the presentation before you get into the data.
Yeah.
Bullet number 3 said external management that they recommend we get. So now let's say we get an external management, Mapleton, and how about the external management that's going to help Central? Who will oversee that?
So what we've been talking, and remember, this recommendation was made a year ago, and it was the same, this is before the hearing in November, right, the state review panel. So what we're recommending, and I feel like the state board is in agreement on, is that we would align it so that essentially your selected district EMO would oversee what is going on in Central, rather than having various different partners under different orders. It would get really, I think, pretty messy. So we're trying to align and kind of fold it in a way that makes sense. I really want to take pains, though, to say, there's, in my observations and our observations, there's some good things going on in Central. We also don't want, we want to keep them moving forward. And so I think we want to go on the record as saying, yeah, they're going in a good direction under current leadership and with their current partners. But in terms of who's in charge, we want to really think about this in a way that makes sense. And so what makes the most sense to us is that district EMO. Does that help clarify? Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Medler, on that piece, I think it makes a lot of sense to align that with the order that the district is already under. I'm curious, though, at one point, the State Board and CDE did contemplate possibly a different external manager for Adams City High School than the district as a whole, and I'm just wondering about the dynamics there.
And so I would say in November, the way they handled it was acknowledging that the school was at the end of the clock, but that by having a district, EMO coming in, having a separate order and a separate manager there was going to be messy. And so they really got folded into that district order. So I'm still in touch. We're still going in. We're still working with the school, providing assistance, but also just ensuring some accountability. But I think as far as the state board is concerned, it's about that district level work and not trying to get in the way of coherence. And so I think what we're trying to do is propose the same thing for Central and just kind of ramp it down a little bit with that hearing or presentation in May. Does that help? I know it's getting a little convoluted. So we're trying to have it flow a little bit more nicely. Okay? Okay. So I am on the highlights on the school, acknowledging that there's been 6 leaders in 6 years, but the current principal, Dina, has been there for 2 years. It'll be 2.5 years at the end of this year. And so that we know that stability and leadership is hugely vital. It's very important in this district in particular. So acknowledging that there's been some stability there for a couple of years. Also acknowledging that in that first year, the focus was on resetting and building trust and really focusing on that culture, which makes sense. You cannot push your teachers and your kids unless you have trust, and so that trust needs to be built. From all indications and from what data that we have, that looks like it's been established, and now the school's been able to focus really on that academic rigor. And then that's where those partnerships with BT and Schools Cubed comes into play. So I've been able to go in and observe both BT and Schools Cubed in the school. And again, hats off to the school leadership in partnership with the district to be able to manage different partners. That can be difficult, but they seem to have figured it out in a way that works for them. And like I said, it seems like early indications are that there's some evidence of movement in student performance, but it's very early. Like we don't want to put all our eggs in that basket. So I want to just call that out. If there's no questions, I'm going to move on to this last slide around just sort of our suggestions for next steps, and that is just getting agreement on. We're doing a presentation or we're doing a hearing with the State Board in May, focused on preparing for the presentation. So in the past, we've done some mock interviewing. Even if we go to a presentation style, I think just practicing together is not a bad idea. So that is important. Encouraging you guys you and everyone to review the materials for the school, so including the State Review Panel report, the school proposal. When CDE has a draft of our report, we will absolutely share that so that you guys can see that in advance as well. And then just ensuring that things are continuing to move forward. So having meetings like this actually is a really good step, okay? So I'm going to step down. I am here. I can continue to answer questions, but I really want to make sure there's enough time for the school.
For Central. So next we'll have Central up.
I had this here. I'm so stupid. That's all right. Good afternoon. Go ahead.
So this afternoon, we're going to be presenting about Central Elementary, and I'm going to go through the district overview, and Dina Valdez, the principal, will be going through the Central overview. And so just a quick district overview. In 2017, as we all know, the district entered year 7 on the turnaround status based on the Colorado District School Performance Framework. And then the state board approved a 3-year turnaround plan with Beyond Textbooks as an external management partner. And then after 1 year, BT's implementation and other evidence-based strategies, the state panel review in 2018 conducted another review for the district. And then the panel recommended that continue with BT, but also have an additional entity or private entity, and we're currently in the process of doing that. So with Central, we will still look at the 3 areas that we looked at in November: instructional transformation, organization, cultural shifts, and leadership development. So with instructional transformation, which the district needs to develop a strong academic program, infrastructure, and continue to partner with BT, which we have done that. And BT is working with Central Elementary, where they're building a stronger foundation of curricular framework, inclusive of all 4 areas of curriculum, instruction, and intervention. Central does use Beyond Textbooks daily math skills. They are the only school that uses their daily math skills framework, which increases accuracy and fluency for math skills in the classroom. Also, Central has individualized coaching with Beyond Textbooks, and in this case, Dina has embraced the feedback provided by BT, which has led her to receive additional training and coaching, either in person or on the phone throughout the day. And so that's the extra that the district adds because of her relationship. Another entity that we are working with is Schools Cube, which has focused on approach of school reform that improves reading abilities of students in the schools, therefore increasing outcomes on state mandated assessments. And again, Dina has embraced the feedback from Schools Cube, which has allowed Dina the availability for additional support from Schools Cube, either through a meeting or through a phone call. Central is the model school for early literacy, so we have other principals that go in to look at what Schools Cube and Beyond Textbooks has supported her with. You will see great gains, I believe, in the fall when we get our test scores back, because she's been working closely with the consultants, and we've seen that. For organizational cultural shifts, I'm just going to highlight a couple of these. I do know there's a list of them. We've had some retreats that the principal at Central has participated in. We've had district meetings that she has participated in. She has sat on committees. She is sought after a number of times for just feedback on different initiatives that we're going through. She has attended the Vail, Arizona, and visit the Beyond Textbooks in Vail, where she participated in the induction and immersion program. We have a team of teachers that went to PBIS, Positive Behavior Supports, because we do know that we have to build capacity within the school on students when they have social emotional problems. Leadership development, we will just highlight a couple because it was important that our district develops our school leaders. And so the Beyond Textbook coaching leadership model, where they've done walkthroughs, they've done a number of walkthroughs, about 12 walkthroughs sessions that they conducted with the principals to give them feedback on instruction in the classroom. Schools Cube leadership support, it's the same support is provided to implement effective systems and structures for reading and early literacy. Strive is another one that we have had this year. It's an effective system of reading support for all students and training coaches and lead teachers. The Central principal does have a representative on the district committee for ELD teacher leadership so that they can give input, and then also the cumulative district support and evaluation. So with this process, it's not only that she has one evaluator that comes and looks at her evaluation and supports her, but there are a number of evaluators. So we have someone from HR, we have someone from finance, someone from instruction, as well as her evaluator that helps her to support her on what she needs to grow.
So this next part is about Central specifically. When I started at Central at mid-year in the 2016-17 school year, I was the sixth principal in 5 years. For whatever reason, the previous principals left. The school as a whole never had the opportunity to gain any traction, and Central was left with bits and pieces of all the previous administrators that had cycled through the school over the previous 5 years. These bits and pieces included broken down systems for ensuring standards-based, high-level instruction, and a hodgepodge of data usage ranging from some teachers regularly assessing students, their students' progress, to teachers using what I call cardiac assessments, where they just feel like students are doing well, but they don't have any actual data to back their hunches. In terms of climate and culture, Central had a mix of disenchanted staff members, distrustful families, and students who, because of a confusing set of behavioral standards that had mutated into something abstract and incomprehensible over the years, didn't know how to do school. It would have been easy for me to look at our situation from a detriment perspective by looking at all that we didn't have or didn't do. But instead, we looked at our school community in terms of what we did have and did do. And what Central community has in abundance is resilience. Our teachers and staff members were doing the best that they could without consistent leaders, without physical resources to do this, to support student needs, and without systemic support from the district, including vision, direction, and the tools to get there. Our students, while not strongly academic, were still coming to school every day, depending on us to provide stability and learning. Our families, while distrustful, were still coming to talk to me individually. And from this, we collectively created the mission and vision statements that we use now. Central Elementary is committed to providing an inviting and safe environment that fosters rigorous and engaging learning and growth by inspiring collaborative, lifelong learners who are empowered to reach their maximum potential. And we focus on motivating all students and creating a cooperative community that fosters academic and social-emotional success for a lifetime. So a little bit about our school. We had 455 students in the 17-18 school year, 80% of whom were Latino, 12% white, 4% black, and 4% described as other. 88.4% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch. Our ELL population is 54.9%, and 45% of our students are English only. Currently, Central has the district elementary center-based program that supports significant support needs students. We also have the moderate needs program. And according to Adams County Census information, 31% of the children in our community live in poverty, and families earn per capita $15,000 a year. Only 64.7% of our community has graduated from high school. And more stark, only 9.2% of our community has a college education. Based on the anecdotal data that I've collected over my time at Central, a large number of our students have also experienced trauma, ranging from domestic violence and child abuse to experiencing, witnessing, or knowing family members who have experienced violent and nonviolent crimes. All this knowledge was the start I needed to work with my instructional team and the remainder of the school using our state review panel information to determine the root causes for our lack of performance. Those root causes include a lack of data-driven systems, inconsistent instruction, and a lack of defined tiered supports to meet our student needs. In order to achieve progress, I've focused on a variety of areas for our team to work. As a leader, I've always understood that I have a deeper and more lasting influence on Central if I provide more comprehensive leadership than focusing solely on standards and instruction. I knew that I could support my staff in short-term academic gains if I brought down the hammer on staff and students in these areas. But if I wanted long-term sustainable growth, I would need to build strong relationships and trust with my staff and students and help them heal from their history of constant change. Only then could I support their understanding of change and build capacity among them to create an environment of continuous school improvement. Although there were times last year when I despaired over the fact that students weren't growing as quickly as I wanted to, I stuck strong in the belief that I needed to build relationships with my staff and students before they could have sustainable growth. So first, we focused on collective efficacy, which is the collective belief of teachers in their ability to positively affect students. Collective efficacy has an effect size of 1.57, which is strongly correlated to student success and can only be built when our school community has strong feelings of trust and solidarity. Redefining goals and expectations has also been a large part of the work that we've done. We have set, communicated, and monitored learning goals, standards, and expectations, and have involved staff members and others along the way so that there is clarity and consensus about our goals. Initially, that work centered around the new implementation of Beyond Textbooks and our behavior expectations at Central. As time has gone on, our staff and students began to find peace in the stability, and we've been able to increase our work to include weekly data-driven conversations that alternate between literacy and math. My leadership team and I have also worked to be strategic in our purchase and use of resources. This has involved aligning our resource selection and allocation to priority teaching goals and has included our work around staff recruitment and retention, as well as building support and goodwill with students, families, and stakeholders. This year, a great deal of our work as leaders has focused on planning, coordinating, and evaluating teaching and our curriculum. This direct involvement in the support and evaluation of teaching through regular classroom visits, side-by-side planning and coaching, as well as formative and summative feedback to teachers has supported student achievement because we have a direct and constant finger on the pulse of instruction at Central Elementary School. We know intimately our teachers' strengths and areas of growth, and we create action plans to support our teachers' constant improvement. Additionally, we have direct oversight of the curriculum we use through school-wide coordination across classes and grade levels through our work with Beyond Textbooks and Schools Cubed. In addition to the coaching that we do as an instructional team, we promote other professional learning for our teachers and fully participate ourselves where we can. For example, our instructional coach and I participated in the foundational literacy trainings that our kindergarten through third grade teachers attended. Our assistant principal has attended the BT math, daily math skills training. And the whole team has participated in all of the BT trainings that they've provided and Schools Cube trainings. We believe that our participation not only encourages participation by our staff, but it prepares us to support them in the application of their learning. We've also worked very hard to ensure an orderly and supportive environment at Central. We protect time for teaching and learning by reducing external pressures and interruptions in ways large and small. We have a mandated protected time for literacy and ELD that can't be altered. We also protect teaching and learning by having the expectations that teachers spend a portion of their morning working on community, because we believe that the upfront time we spend on building community in classrooms will be reimbursed while teaching other content areas. So specifically, the specific things that we've done with Schools Cubed and Beyond Textbooks. My leadership team has attended 2 out of 3 two-day literacy trainings. The next one's coming up shortly. We've had 8 full days of observation and job-embedded training with Schools Cubed using the literacy evaluation tool. That's the rubric that you've seen previously. Schools Cubed has supported us, ensuring that whole group instruction is research-based and highly effective. They've helped us refine our interventions and have supported us in determining which resources would be most helpful for our students. And they've supported us in understanding which data to use to analyze using DIBBLES for a variety of needs and how to structure the reading block and the interventions block. And finally, they've supported leadership in how best to coach our teachers K-5. As for BT, they've provided all new staff training. So we all had training last year, and that for new staff, they've provided that training as well. And that training's been around the curricular framework. Along with detailed and extensive coaching for me, we've had it 6 times this year, and this allowed me to create a schedule where students are retaught and enriched in both math and reading. And finally, we use the calendar within 3 days. So the calendar that they provide us, the teachers have to either be on that day or within 3 days of it, so that they don't get too far ahead or too far behind. We also use common formative assessments that have allowed our teachers to look deeply at students' ability to master standards and how to best support them in gaining the knowledge and skills they need to master those standards. And finally, daily math skills, which Dr. Patterson mentioned, which supports accuracy and fluency in math. Some of these things we looked at our mid-year discussion, so I'm going to go through them more quickly. We do have weekly data meetings with our teachers, and I created the schedule so that teachers could have those meetings embedded within the school day so that they didn't have to come before school or after school to do that. We do them weekly. We alternate literacy and math. We have a data tracking sheet that we use specifically around the common formative assessments for BT. And we use those data meetings as opportunities to provide PD for teachers. So as they're talking about students' needs, they'll mention a student who's struggling with phonemic awareness, for example, and I can have a conversation with them about what they're doing, what intervention they're using, how to best support that student. We've also focused on MTSS in our school with a strong focus on quality first-time instruction and systematic and explicit instruction, specifically around reading foundational skills and strategies. We also have a weekly RTI problem-solving team that meets to determine which students need additional layers of support. And we have ongoing progress monitoring of all students in all subjects.
Excuse me. What is the RT? Is that I you said?
Response to intervention.
What is that?
So let me first explain MTSS. So MTSS is the layers of support that we give. So all students need great first instruction. Let's just do it with instruction versus all the other things that we do. Well, some students need a little bit of extra support. So those students get the great first-time instruction plus maybe an intervention. Okay? When that student's still not doing well, that student's still struggling, then we look at the data and we say, what are we doing wrong? What are we missing? And so that's where we sit down and we say, okay, well, this is the intervention where we're going to, that we're going to use. This is the data that we have to back it. And then we track that over time and we see if the student responds to intervention, responds to intervention. If they do, we keep going. If they don't, we find an intervention that is more successful for that student. Okay?
I think you covered that with us before.
Perhaps. Yeah,
Always ask.
that's okay. I like to explain MTSS, RTI. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the things that we've done specifically around culture and climate. This was this was the same information I provided at the mid-year report that I gave you. But just as a recap, we have worked very hard on it. with regard to student engagement, how teachers can cognitively engage their students throughout the day, what kinds of things they can do to, structures and systems they can put into place to ensure that behavior doesn't start, and interventions that they can use if it does start. We use positive referrals in my school. So if a student is going above and beyond, they get a positive referral. We celebrate the student. We have a goal bell where they set goals for themselves, and everybody stops what they're doing and claps for them as they ring the bell. It's very exciting for them. We also have quarterly awards assemblies, and we have a lot of systems and structures that we use to ensure safety of our students. So we do all these things to ensure that they feel safe and comfortable coming to our school. So this is also data that you've seen before, but we don't have an additional benchmarking time period before this meeting today. As you'll see, this is the kindergarten data for Dibbles. In the 17-18 school year, our students started, is there a little light on that? Yep. So they started out at 47% in the red, having intensive needs, far below level. This year, they started at 59%. So they came in worse this year, okay? But I want you to notice the growth that we had last year, it only moved to, at the end of the year, 46% of our students were, not even 46%, I don't know where that, I added the wrong numbers. Sorry. But you can see here, 61% of our students are at grade level or above grade level in reading in kindergarten. So although we started out worse off than we had last year, we grew much more in kindergarten. At first glance, this data looks not so good. The red didn't go down very far. But in last year, we started out at 21% proficient or advanced and only moved to 29% at proficient or advanced by mid-year. This year, we started at only 13% proficient or advanced and have moved to 30% proficient or advanced by mid-year. So although we haven't moved the red down, we have grown the green and blue at first grade. As students get older, it becomes harder and harder for them to fill in gaps. Our fifth grade started at, whoops, wrong button. Our fifth grade started at 15% proficient and has grown to 30% proficient or advanced by mid-year. So they've doubled it. So this next slide is about students and where they start and how they progress throughout the school year. So in a healthy system, we should be able to move 80% of students out of the risk level, out of red, over the course of a year, and should maintain 90 to 95% of the students who are performing at benchmark. So that first column over there, it's hard for me not to walk over there and point to it for you. Let's see. This first column, 232 students started in the red at the beginning of the school year. And we know that this is our target of opportunity because about 80, 90, come on, Harvest, give me the math right there, 77 plus 14 have stayed.
91.
Okay, have stayed there. However, or I guess only 77% have stayed there. All the rest of the students have moved up. In this one, 64 students started in yellow. 25% of them moved back down. But 50% 50% of those students moved out of this risk category to benchmark or above. We had 46 students who started in red and 59 who started in blue, and on average, we maintained 88% of those students in those two levels. So we're 2 points away from the 90 to 95% that I mentioned before. We're also pretty proud of our behavior data. From the fall to winter, we had 123 office referrals in the 17-18 school year and 47 out-of-school suspensions. And this year, from fall to winter, we had 44 office referrals and 24 out-of-school suspensions. The reason that we believe that it dropped is all the work that we've done around building climate and culture and teaching teachers the tools that they needed to manage behavior. We do notice that the ratio is higher of out-of-school suspensions in the 18-19 school year from the 17-18 school year. And the leadership team has really determined that we think that's because only the highest behaviors are sent to the office. Otherwise, they're being managed within the classroom or they're being alleviated altogether. Okay. Sure.
So our path moving forward is we're going to continue with Beyond Textbooks. They will continue to do the principal coaching as well as working with the instructional framework and the assessments and the common formative assessments. And we will continue to hold Central Elementary accountable through the feedback meetings that we have with Beyond Textbooks currently. We will continue with Schools Cubed. They will continue to support the principal with individualized coaching as well as work with teachers in the classroom to work on instructional strategies. So it'll go a little more deeper. And we will also host our update meetings with Schools Cubed on a quarterly basis where they'll give us feedback and then they make suggestions for change, and then we'll go back to Dina with those changes. We are in the process of creating and we will be implementing a district-wide instructional framework where we will be focusing on EEI, which is in our teaching and learning cycle, as well as our district lesson design and delivery model, which will be for all teachers. I do want to share this. The district will also support Central and other schools with family engagement work by a consultant in the fall, and this work will start in August, September with all schools, but will help with community engagement and partnership with families. The last thing I want to say is outstanding leaders go out of the way to boost the self-esteem of their personnel. If people believe in themselves, it's amazing what they can accomplish, and Central Elementary has accomplished a lot. I'm excited for them and look forward to seeing their scores in the fall. Dina and her team have done an outstanding job this year, and I want to publicly commend her for her hard work and effort. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
I'd just like to say, I've talked to some of the teachers at Central, and they're excited about what's going on this year, and that's due to the leadership of your schools. So keep up the good work, and we'll see good things happening there.
I want to thank you because I know you came in and, as you said, there was a lot of stepping stones you had to align. And you worked hard and you were determined, and that's what I have noticed about you and picked up, that you are determined to do this, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on, the district initiatives, and it may be too early to tell whether those are bearing fruit in terms of student data, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I think as far as Schools Cubed, that data is part of what I just showed you in terms of the growth in kindergarten. The work that we've done I've seen the level of instruction really bump up since our work with Schools Cubed. And the feedback that she gives, my personal consultant, not every school has the same one, but the feedback that I get from Schools Cubed is always very concrete and gives me explicit next steps in how to support my teachers. And I believe that that is the reason that our growth, that we've shown growth in all grades. I just showed you the highlights. As far as BT, I can't be super clear on that just yet because our interim assessments don't show a whole lot of growth, but they're not, I'm not entirely sure how the interim assessments were created. They're not the same ones that BT uses, and so I don't know if they are, what quality they are. They need a little work, yeah. But as far as the common formative assessments, I see teachers now saying, wow, I remember last year they only got, 1 out of 5. Every common formative assessment is 5 questions. They only got 1 out of 5 on these. Everybody only got 1 out of 5, and now they're ringing the bell in the hallway because they've gotten 4s and 5s, and I hear the bell ringing every week by some class or more than one class. Also, when I look at the STAR data, which I don't have here, I think you know that 55, growth of 55 is what we're looking for. Okay, so the growth that we're looking for is 55 because that shows 1 year's growth. I know what you're saying, Harvest, but that's the goal, okay? Last year I had the bulk of my teachers at like 18 or 6 or 30. Now the bulk of my teachers are in the 50s and 60s. And I have a couple of 20s or 30s. So I see the flip. I see that we're making the transition.
On the, and I appreciate you bringing up one specific issue. I think it's good feedback to know that the interim assessments and the BT assessments aren't exactly aligned. And I'd like to dig into that a little further, possibly at a future study session, just to figure out what we can do on that. The other thing I'd say is that one of the issues this board has discussed in study sessions is around resource allocation. Are there resources you feel you need that you're not getting now?
No.
Thank you. Senator Moreno, that study session, the principal will have you there at 6:45 and keep you there to 9 o'clock a.m. Because that's how I got my study session about BT and learning it. And it was eye-opener for myself, so I learned a lot. So thank you. But my question is, I'm learning more about the community and how we can focus, because the governor signed a bill about community involvement and how much, and I'm so much looking at, going back looking at attendance, and attendance is starting to drop in the district the last 3 months. And I think a lot of that has to do with the community, but I don't think one person in our community can look at 9 schools with 7,000 students. So as resources come available, I think we should have to look at, when I read about districts putting in washers and dryers in schools. I look at food pantries and more community engagement for different, this environment. So I think it's more to do with how can we specifically look at different schools' innovation to help community involvement instead of district-wide. So that's what I prefer to look at more or less than we as a community to see what specifically we can involve ourselves with this particular school. So, I commend you and your staff for what y'all do, so thank you so much.
I would just say, I think that's a great idea. Give everybody a washer and dryer and food and all those things that we need, but we can't just give them the things. We also need to give them the resources, the human resources, to be able to manage that. So, for example, if you gave me a washer and dryer with my half-time family liaison, I'd be washing clothes.
That's what the senator just asked you. What else did you need? And you said nothing.
Well, but you just gave me more resources
Okay.
theoretically.
So we
So
Mhm.
what I'm saying is if you give those kinds of resources, we need the human resource to be able to manage it.
Right. It's a package. It's
Yep.
under the Christmas tree.
All right. I'll be waiting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we'll have Alsup Design.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. How's it going?
Good.
Well, I'm back here again, and it's good to see you guys. Just here to give you another update on the progress of the new Alsup Elementary School design. And we gave each of you a packet, and actually I have a full-size schematic design packet here too that I can pass around. Is that one we can take a look at? So we've been very busy having community meetings and design advisory group meetings and architectural review committee meetings in the last couple of months, and that's all culminated in what we have today, which is our schematic design submittal. And that submittal is just the first of 3 phases of design that we're going to do for this new elementary school. And what we wanted to do today is just show you some of the graphics and some of the plans as they stand, and then give you an update on the schedule coming up. So I wanted to start out and talk about the site, to start talking about that first. And what we've done since the last time I met with you is we've defined the playground areas a little bit more, and we've started looking at connections to the community. One of the things that you were just talking about, Harvest, was making sure that the community feels involved and has access to this new building, and we can do that through our architecture and through our design as well. And so some of the things you'll notice here is just a lot of sidewalks and connections to the neighborhood, and also a lot of new access lanes for different bus and parking layouts and drop-offs. So if you have any specific questions on that, I know it's a little hard to see in your booklet there. It's a little small, the text is, but we can review any of those questions you have at the end of the presentation. And then I wanted to zoom in just a little bit and show you the overall floor plan. This is similar to what we showed last time. It's just been developed and refined a little bit more. The BEST grant originally proposed 76,000 square feet as the area of our school, and we are right at that point. That's what we're showing you today. The pricing is being done right as we speak through Franz and Pittman, and we're going to find that out, the first round of that, in the next 2 weeks. And so we'll have that update to report next time on how we're doing from the budget standpoint. But in terms of allotted square footage, we are right on target. And then we wanted to show you real quickly some of the proposed exterior and interior materials we're thinking about. So for the exterior, we wanted it to be more of a timeless look, and so we're talking about natural materials, something that would be contemporary, that would respect the surrounding community, but also be something that looks forward to what's new and what's going to be nice looking for the next 50 years within the community. And so what we're proposing is doing a combination of natural materials with lots of brick, maybe some stone, and some wood-looking material that's also easy to maintain. We're going to price out a variety of different options and then see what comes back as the most efficient in that way, but something that's very welcoming and warm to the community as well. And then for the interior, continuing the same idea of a very natural palette is what we're planning on doing. And so I think last time we talked about incorporating some green into the plan. And so we do want to use green throughout the interior of the building, as well as a lot of natural tones and a lot of neutral tones that won't go out of style real quickly. We want to make sure that this is maintainable and looks great for generations to come. Then we just wanted to show you a brief look at what maybe a typical classroom would look like. And there would be 27 of these classrooms in the new school. And so we're starting to look kind of at a broad overview of that. And you can just see in these three-dimensional views what the different features would be, including there'd be a projector and a whiteboard in each room. We'd have lots and lots of windows to the outside for natural light. And then also views into the corridors and to the breakout spaces out front, so that there can be some collaboration spaces outside of the classroom. And then we just wanted to show you an overall view of the scale of the building. So this is what a two-story building looks like at that scale. It's about 76,000 square feet, as I mentioned earlier. And then finally, we want to finish up by showing you some 3D views of what we're picturing. So this is one of the views that we love to show, where this is the view as you'd first walk in the front door of the building, and this is after you go through the secure vestibule. And so you'd get checked in, you'd sign in, and then get welcomed into this space. And one of the spaces we wanted to highlight is a community room right at the front door. And so we wanted to make sure that this is obviously for the students, but also for the parents, and also for activities within the community that might need a place to meet. And so in this rendering, we're showing that space kind of behind the children with some glass doors on it. That would be a place for a multi-purpose community space, and we could see a variety of different activities happening in that space. But also you could see a lot of glass and a lot of just open space in the media center there. Through a lot of the meetings that we had, we wanted to make sure that that media center, the library, was at the heart of the school, something that was very important and the first thing that you see when you walk in. So once again, lots of natural light throughout the main entry area. And then this view is of the media center looking back at that main entry sequence. And so just looking at the two-story space, very full of volume, very full of light, very inviting. Then we wanted to show you the view of the cafeteria. And so this is a view of the cafeteria that also is the performance area. So it's a cafetorium is the name of these kind of spaces. And that cafeteria or that stage area could be closed off so that it could just have small presentations by one person, or it can open up into the music room and be a full-on stage where they can have performances. Yeah.
How many students would that hold at lunchtime?
So I think we've calculated it would be about 150 students per lunch period. If you've been into the existing Alsup,
Yes.
it's about 3 times the size of that lunchroom. So it's quite a bit larger. So here we show the same view, but during a performance. So you could hold, I think, about 350 people in chairs in that same space. So you can just see the difference between those two. We're trying to make every space flexible. So on an everyday basis, it can be a cafeteria, but for the special performances, we can host that in the large cafeteria space as well. And then we wanted to show you a classroom pod. So this would be one of those breakout spaces in between the classrooms where there can be collaboration between different classes, or small group breakout space for pull-out of a specific topic. Pulling out 3 or 4 students with one para instructor would be ideal in a space like this. Once again, bringing in a lot of natural light from above and from the sides is really the goal here. We find that students learn just significantly better when they have a connection to the outdoors. Finally, we wanted to show you a view of the outside main entry. So this kind of shows those exterior materials that we're developing, just a warm-toned building that is very inviting with a lot of glass and a lot of either brick or stone or, wood-colored materials. And what you're seeing here is kind of the main community plaza is what we're calling it. So this is a place for the students to gather in the mornings and in the afternoons, and also for parents to gather. And even if there's special events, those could happen out there. There's even a portion of it that could be covered by the second story there, so you could have some covered space for an outdoor learning area. So. Next steps, so that's where we are today. We're going to get pricing going on right now through our contractor, Friends and Pittman. And you'll see on April 23rd, we have our cost model workshop. That's when we start exploring all the different options from a cost perspective. And we'll have a good idea of where we're sitting, if we're on target, or if we need to scale back some of the design. We'll find that out at that point. But we're also doing a community open house this Thursday, weather permitting, of course. And so we'd like you guys to show up if you'd want to come and see a presentation about the school and see some more graphics and see the materials in person. So that will be at 4 o'clock on Thursday at the school. And then we're going to continue to have DAG meetings and ARC meetings throughout the next couple of months. Our schedule, if you look at it on the overall scale, is that we have 4 months now in our next phase. So the next phase is called design development, and that will finish up in the end of July. And then after that, we have another phase after that of design. So as we move forward, we'll continue to define all of these things and get feedback from you and from everybody at the school, and keep working towards our goal here. So.
What time was your open house?
I believe it's at 4, is that right?
4?
Yeah, it's 4.
Thank you.
You guys have any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
You didn't put it up on the screen, but I was looking at the booklet that you gave us.
Yeah.
And one of the things that always catches my mind when I look at new facilities is how you put the ball field. I'm sorry, but you got it wrong.
Let's go back and look at it.
I don't, no, you don't have it on there. Because everything's internal.
I think I had it originally at the beginning here. There it is.
So the ball field that I see in that one doesn't look like, but your ball field should always be on the northeast corner.
Okay.
And the reason that is because the way the sun sets at 4 o'clock when most of the kids play baseball
Okay.
in this part of Colorado. And when they built the new high school, we're having problems with a lot of kids getting scared because they put the ball field on the southwest corner, and their eyes are,
Blinded.
Getting blinded by
they're
the light.
seeing the sun, and I know a lot of builders say, well, that's the way the Rockies have it. Yeah, but the Rockies don't play at 4 o'clock, and they got a 50-foot building in front of their backstop, so it protects them. But I would just like, if we're going to put a ball field, I would like to see it done right for our kids to play.
Is that one's correct, right?
If that is in the field there, the north, yeah, that would be the way it should look.
That we have corrected that since
Okay.
that layout that you saw in the larger handout. So this is the way it's oriented now in the design. So
Okay.
I think we've resolved that, but it's a great comment. Yeah, thank you.
Is that the middle school?
So the middle school is going to be to the east of that. It's not on this drawing at all,
Okay.
but it would share that ball field in the middle eventually.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And one last question. You say Thursday. How is the communication going out to the community? How is that going out? How are y'all sending that out?
I think John can answer that. He's the communications person.
John? Mr. Poynton?
I haven't seen any of it, and I'd like for us to be on emails too.
Yes.
My question is, they're having a community event for the design of Alsup this 4 o'clock, correct? The 11th. How's the communication going out towards the community?
What I can tell you is what typically happens.
and that is that we send that out through flyer app and through the district website, posted on the district website or the school website. And there are a couple other communications tools that we use generally for those kinds of communications. So I'm assuming that in this case, those were done, especially the flyer app.
So we don't know if they done?
What I can do is I can contact the area communication specialist for that area and ask exactly what was done and get back to you on that.
Can the board get emails to see? We like to be invited to those type of things because we wasn't on it. We didn't get none.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Just real quick, based on the schematic you have here, so the soccer and the baseball fields couldn't be used simultaneously, it looks like?
Correct. The soccer field is not a competition-sized soccer field. It's for the elementary school. And so there would be an overlap there where during the day, during the school day, it would be used as the soccer field for the elementary school. And then in the evenings, it would be used for the public baseball or softball programs. So. Yeah, once the middle school is constructed, there will be a soccer field in the middle of the track on the north side there. So there will be eventually a full size on the site, but not during phase one.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the budget.
President Quintana, members of the board, good evening. So I wanted to go over this handout that you should have been emailed, I think, back on Friday, or it was in Friday update, but really it's reviewing the total program funding and how that is going to feed into our general fund revenue for the year. With a preliminary projection based on the governor's request, the last one that we had. So at the top of this, you can see our projected pupil count is down 138. That's funded. And then the revenue per pupil is up about 334. And the total then, the change in the program is about $1 million from the one year to the next, going up. And this shows you the way that's broken out between property tax and SO tax, and then the equalization. That equalization number, when it feeds into our budget, ends up getting netted with some of the transfers, and that's what's on that second page. And it has kind of a comparison of that equalization and the transfers last year versus the transfers this year. They're going to be netted out of there. And the biggest thing to note there is prior year we had that transfer for about $3.8 million, which was to the building fund to fund the match on Alsup. So we won't have that next year. And when you factored that in, you end up with that equalization number going up more. And then that carries on to page 3, where you have the total revenue for the general fund and comparing last year to this year. And that total change there that we're projecting right now is $3.7 million between the one year to the next. But again, it's important to remember that this, in the prior year, because of that large transfer, we had budgeted to use fund balance of about $3.2 million. So really, having this increase of $3.7 million is really just reflecting not making that transfer. And, with that factored out, it's more of a balanced, back to just being a balanced budget instead of spending into fund balance. And this projection does include the reduction to the negative factor, the one that was in the governor's request, and it includes about 300,000 something for the full-day kinder, which we expect is additional money. Are there any questions I can answer over this document?
Are we going to, just a moment, are we going to executive session after this? Yes. Because I'd like to talk to them about something in executive session about this. Personnel, it's personnel.
Senator?
Mr. Storrs, I'm wondering if you could go into a little bit, like the piece around the $300,000 we're estimating for free full-day kindergarten. I ask because, obviously I've been looking at the fiscal impact of that from the state level, and it shows, the estimates at the state level are that Adams 14 would receive more than $300,000. So I'm just worrying about the disconnect there.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what you have as far as that, what data you have there too, just to make our projection stronger. When I researched what we had as far as unfunded kindergarten, what I found in my research was that the majority of our kindergarten kids are covered with e-care slots already. So just having those kids there and being in full-day kinder, because we're already receiving funding for those e-care slots, what I looked at was the number of kindergarten kids who are currently unfunded because they didn't meet requirements to fit into e-care slots. I do have some other, outstanding kind of questions that we need to work through, depending on the way this comes out. And, one of them is, will we continue to receive the hold harmless money? And for our, in the past, which is that 380,000, and then in the past, for our kindergarten kids, we weren't funded at just 0.5. We were funded at 0.58. And that 0.08, my question is whether or not that will go away. So when you factor in those two things, it even gets a little bit more murky. So I think that's how I ended up kind of where it is, but that really is a moving target right now. I'm not quite sure exactly, but that's the number I've put into here.
So Maria, I think the $300,000 comes from about $140,000 kind of flat fee that we would receive automatically one time, and then we're saying those 22 students times about the $8,700 we're estimating is how we came up to roughly the $300,000 currently right now. We'll keep on working at and looking at those projections to see if that'll stay, but that's currently how we came up with the $300,000 right now. I want to talk about the expenditure side a little bit and let you know where we are with setting up the expenditure budgets. Last time we met, we talked about the school budgets and looked over a turnaround factor piece for all the schools. We currently gave all the school principals a deadline of April 16th to come up with a plan of how we're going to spend that money and how we're going to evaluate and get data to move forward with that specific money. So next board meeting, we plan on presenting how we're going to spend that roughly $520,000 for all the schools' turnaround factor money and show that how we're going to evaluate that throughout the year to show that's being useful to actually have an effect on turnaround, either stabilizing or increasing our test scores of where we're at. So at the end of the year, hopefully every quarter, each school will be able to give a presentation to see how we're utilizing that money. Is it being effective? So hopefully at the end of the year, we can see that money's been put to good use and it has had a positive impact for using that money there. We currently, for the rest of the school's budgets, we have already finalized. We're meeting with the rest of the departments. We should have everybody finalized probably by the next board meeting So we're just, after that, it's just kind of tweaking the board. You know, there's some big outstanding things of what the EMO cost is going to be. We have some estimates, but that could tweak what the capital fund total process could be at the end of everything. So kind of some two big things there is EMO cost, which we know has a negotiation period for that contract. Those two things will kind of go hand in hand of what we're doing with the capital fund and what we're doing with the EMO total contract cost. And the next thing I really want to talk to is kind of a handout, if I could hand that out to the board here. So there's a graph on it. So what this sheet here is a 5-year enrollment and staffing analysis that kind of breaks down where our enrollment has done in the last 5 years and where our staffing has gone in the last 5 years. For enrollment, we've seen a total of 524 students leave the district over the last 5 years. Kind of breaks it out there by year and gives you the change by year of what we've seen. Right below that, we have 5-year staffing, and overall it shows 18.54 FTE reduction in the same 4 years, or same 5 years. Right below that, I kind of broke it out by what that staffing is. So we saw a reduction in the last 5 years of 5 administration. We saw a decrease of 16.98 certified staff members, a decrease of 3.76 classified staff members, and an increase of 7.2 support and tech staff members. What we did with the 524 students enrolled, we took the average of the last 4 years of our PPR and multiplied that to show that, that's a loss of $4.2 million roughly in revenue by losing those students. The staffing, we took the average salary of what those staff members made and show that we reduced expenditures there of $1.4 million. Basically, the highlighted area down there kind of shows the lost revenue that we have versus the decreased expenditures that we had. And we're not tracking the expenditure loss to the revenue loss of what we're doing in the amount of roughly $2.76 million. So on the back of this kind of has a 5-year chart that shows our enrollment in blue, which is declining, and our staffing, which typically you want to correlate to exactly what your enrollment is doing. So if you have a decrease in enrollment, you want your staffing to kind of follow that so we can maintain the staffing ratios and maintain the equal balanced budget. And that's kind of what we would like to get to, is to say a typical procedure would be every 25 to 26 student numbers that we would lose, that's equal to about 1 FTE in staffing ratio. So trying to get our staffing back to where it needs to be with our student enrollment is something that we want to prioritize and look at.
I got a question for that. I'm kind of torn between there's a not an FTE yet, but there's a CTE director for the high school, but then that CTE director / is a assistant principal. Now, when it was submitted to the CDE, it was submitted as one individual, separate. It wasn't submitted as two. It was submitted as a CTE director, and Mr. Durant has been doing both. And I don't think, personally, that he should be doing both. And I don't think that's evaluated in this, is it?
So all the numbers in here are accurate to what the staffing has been the last 5 years. I know that's one position that we're discussing as what that's going to look like in the future. So currently it shows the correct staffing, what it is, and I know we're looking to the future to see what that position is, and is it going to remain that same way, or is that too much to have an AP CTE director as the same person? So I do know that's under discussions.
we can discuss that in the executive session. When we go into that executive session.
So, Mr. Milner, I'm just curious, it looks like in the previous years, when we've lost enrollment, roughly proportional reductions have been made in staffing, except for 2019. Can you kind of explain that, why that's different?
Yeah. We were not expecting to lose so much enrollment this year. It was kind of a surprise. We were expecting a small amount reduction, but at the same time, our total grants, I believe, almost doubled, going from roughly 7 to 8 million to 14 million this year, which allowed us to hire more FTE, which are grant dependent. So we have a lot of grant-dependent positions this year, which could potentially, if those grants go away, the FTE goes away. So those staff are hired with that, knowing that knowledge that if the grant's not there, the position's not there. So because we received so much more money in grant, that's pretty much the entire increase of why we had the staffing increase there in 19.
And have we drilled down at all on why there was such a large loss in enrollment?
It's mostly at the elementary schools. The middle schools and high schools pretty much remain the same, or maybe a slight increase even at some of the middle school, high schools. Monaco, we lost over 100 students. I think there are 2 other elementaries that lost roughly 40 to 50. Some kind of on those boundaries that are closer to maybe some of our other school districts surrounding us. So they're, we're looking to see, did they actually go to 27J or Westminster? We can get that data from the state to see if they went to a charter school, did they go to what schools they went to. But most of those schools are kind of on our boundary areas closer to some other surrounding districts. So assuming that could be potential loss of where they may have gone.
And typically, we don't find that out until after school starts, and we start getting the requests for records, or we request them. Then
So-
we can start logging off why
So
the count is down.
even at Monaco, when we first saw that enrollment, we reached out to the principal at Monaco, and she thought that all those students would still come back. So it's kind of been a characteristic that has happened, is maybe students don't show up until after school starts in September or October sometimes. But though this was uncharacteristic of how many students for one school that we've ever seen. They were down, I think, 130 students at one point, and we did get some of those kids back, but obviously not all of them.
Yeah, I'd be curious just for us to do a little bit more analysis on this. I'm also curious to know if that loss in enrollment happened before school registration started or throughout the school year, because I think that matters as well.
So I do know that we're trying to start a marketing program to try and get some of these students back. John Poynton in the communications department is trying to get flyers and see, can we go out and reach some of these community members and parents to say, this is what we're offering here at Adams 14. We would love to have you back, and kind of bring them in and go out and speak to them to see if we can send flyers out or meet them directly to try and get them back into Adams 14. So John's been doing a great job trying to get something together to get these students back to Adams 14.
And just real quick, to go back to free full-day kindergarten for a second, because I think, should that become a reality, which I think it will for the upcoming school year, what effect that would have on enrollment in our elementary schools? And if you can look at what the eligible elementary population is for full-day kindergarten versus what the actual utilization rate is, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. That would be the,
Part of the budget.
well,
So just, President Quintana and distinguished board members, I just wanted to, my name's Darcy Moore, and I wanted to just do a 5-minute presentation for you, or overview for you, of some work that our executive team has been doing for strategic planning if I could steal 5 minutes. And then the plan would be to come back at a later time to provide more information. Along with the budget presentation and the declining enrollment, and our turnaround status as a district, our executive team has been doing some strategic planning. And we met Friday afternoon and spent most of the day facilitated by Bob Tipton. The executive team, mostly of those are here tonight: Sean Milner, Dr. Jeanette Patterson, Dr. Childress, Sheila Burke, John Boynton, Monica Avina, myself, and Matt Schwartz and Shay Carter have now joined us. The key intentions and observations that we made and we came to adopt were developing a strategic plan with short-term, long-term goals to drive our work. Increased rigor and focus on students is a goal of ours. Stop declining enrollment. In the interim of an EMO, we are the EMO, and we need to continue to work and make changes and decisions for the next school year because we have a district to run. So we've also, the changes already started. We've said risk-taking is encouraged. We get the right persons in the right positions, and we have a bias towards action, and the time is of the essence. So with that said, we put together a brief plan that we just wanted to introduce to you very quickly, and then we'll be back at our next board meeting, hopefully if we can have time to add a little more detail. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Brian Childress to lay that out for you quickly.
So thank you for the time and to just take a look at the work that we've been doing and provide us with whatever feedback you have. That would be fantastic. We do take this work seriously around knowing that an EMO will join us, but that we will be the ones doing the work, and this is the work that we think is the right work, which is we very much believe that this declining enrollment is really very closely tied to rigor and the attractiveness of our programs, that those two go hand in hand, and that we can do some work right now to change that direction for the fall of 19. Looking at our programming as pre-K 8 programming and 9-12 programming, we can prioritize some very specific things. We can prioritize accelerating growth at the pre-K 8 level with making a real focus on skills and knowledge and calling out some very real goals of getting 2 years growth in a year's worth of time. We need to raise that bar so that students, when they are at the 9-12 level, have the skills and knowledge they need in order to pursue the passions and dreams that they have. At the 9-12 level, we're very conscious that we need to offer relevance to our students and real program options to our students. So we've been working closely with the high school to work through their staffing, to work through how they're organizing their work, and introducing some ideas around academies that may make their work more relevant, may focus their work on relationships, and will raise the level of rigor for the students at the high school. Those academies might look like a 9th grade academy where we focus on getting all 9th graders passing the 9th grade year. There's plenty of research that helps us identify 9th grade as a critical year. If they're successful in their 9th grade year and they have all of their credits, they'll be able to maintain and stay on track. Moving into 10th, 11th, 12th grade, if students have real choices, real options, a full CTE menu to choose from with certificates to earn, choices like biotech, choices like STEAM, which include the arts. We hope, we think, and we plan that we'll be able to increase graduation rate, lower dropout rate. Folded into some of the high school propositions is the flexibility to add some things. We know internships are very important in each one of those academies. We know that AP for all and raising that bar so that they have a college-level experience at the high school level is very important. Concurrent enrollment is something we've dipped our toe into, but we really need to invest in so that they have real options for earning college credit at the high school level. So we're beginning to have conversations with principals, identifying work that they've already done, and hooking into momentum that they've already gained. For Alsup, for example, Alsup has already done a significant amount of work in the STEAM area, and for them to continue work in STEAM makes a ton of sense for them. And as we look forward, we're working with each of the principals in the elementary, middle schools to identify focus areas. And so what you've got there are some suggestions of focus areas in front of you that those principals have begun to either identify or want to explore with their staffs. As we think about the whole piece, we're thinking about this in terms of relationships, relevance, rigor, and renewal for our district. So amongst ourselves, we've been coining it R4, those 4 R's, but really pushing an idea that we have an identity, we have a focus, and we have something to sell. And then combining that with a recruiting tool, such as this draft that I handed out to you, that we can send out to all of the residents in each one of the neighborhoods so that we're getting the word out that we're focusing on excellence in each one of our buildings. So just know that this is the work that we've engaged in, and these are the pieces that, that we'll be bringing forward. Okay?
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
And that we complete our study session, and we'd like to move into executive session.
Madam Chair, if I may. The citation for the executive session is on the bottom of your agenda. CRS Section 24-64024B, legal advice, board to conference with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific matters.
Have kids outside the classroom.
May I have a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to proceed into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, paren 4, paren B, legal advice, board to conference with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific matters.
May I have a second?
Madam Chair, I second. We go to executive session, CRS 24-6-4024, legal advice, board to conference with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice for specific matters, CRS-24-4-F, personal, individual, personal matters.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Monica, roll call.
Mr. Moreno?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana?
Aye.
Mr. Rowland?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
I need 3 minutes.